My name is Rebecca Eman, and I am the arts manager for the City of West Hollywood. So I got into the field of public art because I wanted to help artists realize big ideas out in the public realm. I began work with the City of West Hollywood in 2015 as their first public art administrator, and am now serving as the arts manager. The intent of the Urban Art Program is to provide free and accessible art for our community. The Urban Art Program has been around for more than 35 years. The city owns 18 art projects. 75 are included in our entire urban art collection, and there are more than 10 in development. So the possibilities for the Urban Art Program are endless. In West Hollywood, we invite artists to think of the city as a blank canvas so they can make their own mark.
Hi, I'm Scott Froschauer. I have two pieces in West Hollywood at the moment on Santa Monica Boulevard. They're both neon, large scale. One of them's called One Love, and one of them's called Relax, You Are Okay. There's no way that any other work of art I've ever done gets as many eyeballs on it in any given day as the work that I've done in West Hollywood. And it's not just the number of people that see it, but it's the intention that I'm bringing to it that is in alignment with the intention that the city of West Hollywood has. West Hollywood has an air of inclusivity and empathy that really directly relates to my core principles. And so it's really exciting to be able to not just do work with West Hollywood, but that they allow me to do this epic scale work, this large scale work in neon, in such a highly visible site. What people generally recognize about my art is that it's based on street signs. And the reason I like working with street signs is because it's a visual language that we're all familiar with. And we're probably more familiar with it than we even think. So a red octagon being a stop sign, we recognize the red octagon. And what is the message that it's giving us? It's giving us a payload of stop. So I like to use that same red octagon or that one-way sign, things that we already are familiar with, but how am I going to change what message is coming through? And so the message I'm going to think of is something constructive, something positive, something about how we can complete ourselves, that we're whole in ourselves as we are. So Relax, You Are Okay is a perfect example of that, that it's telling you that you're okay as you are and you don't need anything additionally, but it's using a shape, a symbol, fonts, colors, all of these things that you're really comfortable with, that you're expecting a different piece of information from. One of my goals with the work is that not everyone might necessarily even recognize it as different. That by being really similar to pre-existing concepts that we have, that we might walk past it and just assume that it is something that we'd seen before. That it says something that we expect it to say, rather than this new thing that I'm putting on it. And so there's a part of it that is a surprise, that most people might not notice it at all. Most people might walk right by it. But then somebody does notice, that's not what I was expecting. I was expecting it to say something else, and now I'm surprised. And that opens this door to more exploration. What's going on? And really, if I were to say what a big program of mine would be, is that maybe then people start looking at other signs and be more aware that they're reading these other signs, that maybe these surprises exist in other places in their life, that once they see one in one place, that maybe there are a bunch of these around, and so they might be more cognizant of seeing other signs.
I'm Richard Turner, and I'm an artist. I've been an artist since I was in high school, and I taught at Chapman University in the art department for 40 years. I ran the art gallery there. I am now retired, and I continue to make art here in my studio. For the city of West Hollywood, I created a piece that's called The Riddle of the Sphinx, and it's at a recreational center in Plummer Park. The reason that I chose that as a motif is that the recreational center had two main parts to it. On the right-hand side is a youth center, and on the left-hand side is a center for senior citizens. And so I thought I wanted to do something that not only related to Hollywood, but also related specifically to the functions of the recreational center. So what I came up with was a Sphinx. The riddle of the Sphinx is, what is it that walks on 4 legs as a child, walks on 2 legs in midlife, and walks on 3 legs at the end of their life? And the answer is a human being. Because a human being as a baby crawls on all 4s. In midlife, a human being walks on 2 legs. And towards the end of their life, an adult walks on 3 legs, that is, with the assistance of a cane. This riddle was asked by the Sphinx of passers-by, and if they could not answer it, they would be killed. The other reason that I was interested in using the Sphinx for this piece of art is that Hollywood has had a long fascination with Egyptology, as has the country in general. If you look at the back of a $1 bill, you get an image of a pyramid with an all-seeing eye on top of it. If you think of the shopping center up at Hollywood and Highland, that's based on an Egyptian set that was a part of a D.W. Griffith film called Intolerance. And then up in near Santa Barbara, there's the dunes in which the sets for Cecil B. DeMille's 10 Commandments were buried in the sands. And it's like our own bit of Egyptian archaeology here in Southern California. So this sculpture of the Sphinx is made out of fiberglass. Because it's an outdoor sculpture, it had to be something that was durable. The other thing that I wanted to do was I didn't want to just make a replica of a Sphinx. This was initially modeled in clay on a small scale. Then it was scanned by a 3D scanner, and then blown up and carved with an automated foam carving device driven by the laser scanner. And when they do this, they carve it like from the top down, and you go around a layer, and then you come down and you go around another layer, you come down and go around another layer. First, it's very crude layers, and then it gets finer and finer and finer, and ultimately you get down to a point where you've got a smooth replica of whatever it is you're getting carved. But what I asked them to do was to kind of stop the carving process in the middle, which is why you get this layered look. It looks like it's been done mechanically rather than carved by hand. And that's the kind of look that I wanted that would give it a sort of contemporary quality and be a little ambiguous rather than, oh yeah, that's a Sphinx, we understand it, we can just walk by it. When I was working on the Sphinx project, I wasn't thinking so much of the fact that I had seen the Sphinx, but more I was thinking about the history of the Sphinx in relationship to the West. And particularly, I was thinking about the fact that when the French invaded Egypt, Napoleon's troops shot the nose off of the Sphinx. They used it for target practice. And I thought, well, in my own small way, I can perhaps right that wrong and produce a Sphinx that has a full-blown nose to it.
My name is Rebecca Lowry, and I have worn many hats in my day. Right now, I guess you could call me an artist. I'm not really comfortable with the term artist because it feels too limiting, which is kind of ironic because that's a very broad label, and yet I do a lot of things. What if we came up with a project wherein the city communicated something different and unexpected to its populace, to the people who live there? The natural progression was to kind of break it out into 2 different questions. One was, what would be the format? And the other is, what would be the content. I've worked with poetry in a lot of different projects, and so I started to think about haiku poems because they're very short, so they would fit on a sign. The other thing that I loved about the idea of using a haiku poem, really what a haiku does is, or what a haiku is about, is capturing a memorable moment in time. And I thought how wonderful that could be for a city, instead of saying like, don't do that, to share a moment in time. And so a parking sign seemed like a perfect opportunity, because when people are looking at parking signs, they're in the middle of their day. The parking sign is telling them what they can't do. They're probably irritated by it. And it's just for them really a problem. So I thought, why don't we take this irritating and challenging form of signage, and instead of having it say, you're only allowed to park here from, 6 to 9, instead, when people look up at it and are just in the middle of their busy day, they look up and suddenly they're taken completely away from where they were and what they were thinking of. And a moment from a completely different time and place is shared with them. And even if it makes them pause for just a moment in their day, it still gives them that pause and takes them out of all of that. And so in a way, I thought this project could really kind of be a gift to the people who find themselves in West Hollywood, of just a little break and an opportunity to go somewhere else for a moment. And so that's the project.
I'm Philip K. Smith III, and I'm an artist. We're here in my studio based in Palm Desert. I find myself inspired every day by this place and the surroundings that I wake up to. So around when I was selected as a finalist for this project, I had just completed Reflection Field out at the Coachella Music Festival. And that was 5 large-scale, monolithic, mirrored volumes. And I had, prior to that, had just completed Lucid Stead, just 6 months prior. So it was this kind of Lucid Stead, moving into Reflection Field, being selected for West Hollywood, and moving right into Parallel Perpendicular. So those 3 projects really kind of blend together, and all of them employ this logic of reflection and color. Because the piece employs reflection, there is, in a way, a kind of unique experience for each person that is viewing it, because it's based on where your eyeballs are in space, and in this case, where they are in West Hollywood Park. One of the slides that I had in my original presentation for this project was that it was about reflection, color, and the city all merging together. And so there's this kind of flurry of color and the rainbow and like the full spectrum of color. And that logic has found its way into the color choreography for this work. So I would say all colors represented, all paces, all people, everyone is represented within this work. It's perfect for the city of West Hollywood. Because this is a light-based piece, I think it presents an atypical experience. It's not a usual thing that you experience during your day where you're confronted with a 8-foot by 9.5-foot mirror, and then also just a field of color. So this idea of being bathed in light at night is unique, and I think that there is a kind of meditative quality to that, which I like having injected into the kind of frenzy of a major metropolitan area, that there is this space in a park that's carved out for calm. Really that's what parks are in a way. They're these green landscaped respites from the reality of the city. So to step into that space for the park, and then to step into the space of the installation and the sculpture, really begins to craft a space where you can stop and slow down and experience the color, and maybe just think about seeing and listening for a second out of your day. So that slowing down experience is very important to me, so that people can truly see the beauty that's in front of them.
I'm Amber Ward, the granddaughter of Jay Ward, the producer of Jay Ward Productions. He did such hits as Rocky and Bullwinkle, George of the Jungle, Super Chicken, Peabody and Sherman, and a ton of others. He also created with his friend Alex Anderson the first cartoon for television called Crusader Rabbit in 1948. The statue came to be because across the street from my grandfather's studio was the Las Vegas Sahara's girl, and she was this massive statue that would turn around. So when the show was about to air, they thought it'd be a great publicity stunt to just have a massive Rocky and Bullwinkle statue dressed in a bathing suit similar to the Sahara's girl and have it turn around in front of his office. So that was really the intended effect. It was just to, you know, why not mock the thing across the street? And it just kind of became a cultural piece of Sunset Boulevard at the time. And an interesting fact too is when they were premiering or unveiling the statue, they closed down Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood down to one lane, which is pretty much unheard of. And they had about 5,000 people attend. They had Gene Mansfield and the city mayor at the time attend, and it was like, they had popcorn and dancing. It was a whole party in the streets. And those people that he wanted to have, you know, guests put their handprints, kind of like Grauman's, he wanted to mock them, and so he wanted to put their elbow prints into the cement around the statue. And the other reason too is he was giving out martinis, and he didn't want people to spill their martinis while they were putting their elbow prints into the statue around the base. In the early 2000s, where the location of the original statue was, we actually sold that property. And the landlord let the statue stay there, the new landlord, for several years. And around 2013, we realized, you know what, the statue needs to be maintained because of weather and time. So Jay Ward Productions, and our family, in addition to DreamWorks, pulled the statue to have it updated. You know, it needed some paint and some, you know, touch-ups and whatnot. So in 2014, we unveiled it at the Paley Center in Beverly Hills at the Jay Ward art exhibit, and it was there for several years. And then we were looking for the perfect home, and we finally found it to be back where it is now on Sunset Boulevard, and we were gonna unveil it March 28th, 2020, but then COVID happened. So it is just there in its permanent home right now. City of West Hollywood has been a pleasure to work with. They've taken great care of the statue, and they're really excited about having the Rocky and Bullwinkle statue back in the city, as are we.
Murano and Rocking Angel. Where do you start? Well, basically, I use light fabrication techniques. I use sheet technique and kind of abbreviated machine techniques. I picked them up from a guy named George Duval. His son, I made friends with his son, Greg. I watched them, and they had some presses and different machines, and we made things. My dad was a carpenter, and he had actually graduated art school and done a lot of work within the union movements and all of that, and that morphed into becoming a carpenter. So we were very conversant in making stuff and constructing, and how things get fastened and can still stand up, and how to make them rigid. The Murano is a funny name because it's after Murano, Italy. And so I envisioned this Guardian, and the Guardian is off of the unicyclist, who's an acrobat, because the acrobat's on the wire and he's balanced, and if he goes one way or the other too far, it's over, literally and figuratively. Right. Our Rocking Angel is the combination of the angel body that I've been working out with a tiki head. I'm very influenced by the Bauhaus and the idea that everything is broken down into essential shapes, cone, sphere, cube. So when I got a hold of the tiki idea, it was to produce a group of geometric shapes that would carry it. And of course the Easter Island guys are pretty close anyway. And then the same with the angels, where we were looking for a very sort of a Schlemmer, Moholy-Nagy kind of solution to this figurine. You know, I'm a doll maker. The name of our city, of course, is Los Angeles. And the other factor is that this becomes a symbol of concentrated good energy. And a part of the idea and the ongoing mythology is that there's energies floating in the air that are close or far and may even aid you or inform you. And these are personified, these phenomena are personified by angels.
My name is Janet Eckelman. I am a visual artist who has devoted my life to creating works in the public realm that everyone can enjoy, free as the air. As you walk up the Sunset Strip in West Hollywood, you see between two buildings these floating colors moving through the air. And as you get closer, you begin to see multiple forms floating on top of one another. As a child, I had made and learned how to make Native American objects called dream catchers. And so this started to pull up my memories of dream catchers. And I thought, well, why don't I make something to catch dreams between these two buildings? And then as I realized that the buildings would become two hotel towers where people would be sleeping, there was yet this third layer where literally people's dreams would be floating through their windows into these dream catchers. I was given this site in West Hollywood on the Sunset Strip. It's a place where people go to pursue their dreams, the land of Hollywood and films, and where everyone goes in search of their dreams. At the time I received this commission, I was having insomnia. And in the middle of the night, I went onto YouTube and was looking for something to catch my attention to pass the time. And I found these animations of brain waves during REM sleep, the deep sleep where you go into the deepest dreams. And as I watched those colorful forms undulate, I thought that is what this dream catcher will be filled with. I love that my work is open to the public, that you can stumble upon it without expecting to, without knowing what it is. There's a delight in a surprise. Everyone can understand it. There's a way in for each person to engage and begin to think or contemplate what it might be, what it might mean in your world. This piece in West Hollywood is unique in that it transforms completely when you see it from afar and when you come in underneath it. And I designed these 4 layers so that only once you make the effort to walk underneath, that each layer lines up and it becomes this kind of doorway to the sky. And I feel that if you give effort, you should be given something by the artist.
My name is David Wiseman. I designed and created the Platanis Bibliothecalis installation in the West Hollywood Library, a tree installation that emerges from the surface of a wall adjacent to the stairs that ascends into the collections room. And it's a ghost-like tree installation as though it had always been in the building and is just kind of showing itself, and then forms a canopy overhead. I wanted this piece to feel as though the ancient trees that once inhabited this landscape are honored and are, in a sense, reclaiming their real estate. It's thinking about what a tree would do if it could inhabit the walls that we have. It's about referencing the motif that Johnson Favreau beautifully designed for the collections room, and incorporating elements from the park that's directly outside. I love the idea that there's a sense of discovery, that you don't immediately understand the piece from afar. When you approach the piece, there's new things you learn about it. So for instance, the trunk, which is very close to the viewers on the stairwell, is encrusted with porcelain castings of sycamore trunk pieces. And it's applied with different glazes and very much handmade into this sort of mosaic pattern. So that you have to experience, you have to interact with the piece to really experience that. And then as you ascend, you're becoming much closer to the canopy above, and you see these beautiful shadows at different times of the day. You can really get a sense of the scale of the piece, because it's quite large. I had never made something at that scale before. So I wanted to both achieve this sort of overwhelming feeling, but also this intimacy. This was an incredible opportunity to create something that was monumental in scale. And it was very kind of ambitious of the city to allow a relatively, unknown green artist to kind of have creative carte blanche within the space. And the freedom that they gave me really allowed the piece to flourish.
I'm Paul Giannatopoulos. I'm a fine artist and a public artist. I've been working since I was 8. So I work in all media. I'm an intermedia artist and basically conceptually driven. So what Floorform actually is, it is like something right out of my studio in a sense. I use pixels as reminders how math can simulate nature and life, which is kind of still a mystery with chaos theory and all those kind of things, where numbers you can actually create an equation that imitates nature. I didn't expect people to walk into Floorform in West Hollywood and go, oh, math imitates life. It's like, that's not the point really, but it actually is there. I'm also very, very nearsighted. If I take my glasses off inside Floorform, I take my glasses off, it actually looks like leaves on the ground because it's no longer pixelated. It's actually all smooth surfaces and stuff. Or you can, on the roof, if you get elevated, you go high enough off the air, the resolution all of a sudden becomes leaves. So it was a synthesis of those two significant ideas. So it was like the further away you get, the more clear it is, and bits of information reduced to its smallest piece. It's basically tiling. Tiling it's actually a science. It's also tiling for your bathroom. So they're not exactly the same thing, but they use modular components. And that's why I use tile as pixels in Floorform. So it's actually using tiling as it existed for the last couple thousand years, as people would put stuff together that were uniform, and everything from mosaics to actual early Moorish tiling designs and things like that. And then I used digital technology to actually create the pattern. The leaves were drawn, and then they were scanned, and then I pixelized them deliberately, and then I pixelized them and manipulated them to how I would like them to be. And then I worked with a tile company to make the pattern. Floorform, the entire installation is made out of 1-inch porcelain tiles. So the important thing about that is the 1 inch is the pixel module. It's actually a square pixel simulation. And the geometry of it was developed in a digital environment. In other words, it's a scan drawing, and it's just tiled, and that's how it works. The city of West Hollywood was an excellent facilitator. In other words, they did follow the artist about and enhance their ability to produce the piece. And they definitely wanted the art to be art. They wanted the city to be well represented. They cared about all the stuff they're supposed to, is they gonna hurt anybody, all the practical stuff. Floorform, I believe, works as a public art installation because of its nature is deliberate. Its nature is to inform and locate people. That's its job. Its job is to remind you, which is, ironically, mostly, I think my job as an artist is, where are you and where are you going? So the leaf pattern gets your attention, the color reminds you which level you're on. It's kind of that simple.
Hi, I'm Tanya Brodsky. I'm the artist behind Yolki Palki that's up in Plummer Park right now. I was initially really excited about this project because I had spent years working in West Hollywood, was quite familiar with the neighborhood, and it is a primarily largely Russian-speaking community. There's a lot of immigrants from Eastern Europe, which is the background that I am from. This project uses very kind of standard materials and construction techniques that would be used in a playground that of course have been tweaked and altered a bit because it is a sculpture. These were made by professional fabricators, and this was a process that I created a digital rendering for and made all of the calculations, and then it was primarily outsourced to professionals who would do a better job than I can of welding these and producing these. We worked with an engineer to make sure as well that all of the pieces were strong enough to withstand interaction and earthquakes and weather and all of the like. This is the largest project that I've done so far. We had to really make sure that it was safe for people to interact with, and that someone who really wanted to climb on top of it could do so safely and not damage the artwork and not hurt themselves in the process. I'm really excited to see people using it because it's so much about the ways that our bodies are conditioned to use space, how we think about using something like a playground, which teaches us, it's designed to teach us how to interact with objects, how to interact with the built environment. And this piece specifically does it in a absurdist way. It changes it into something that isn't normative, that isn't what you would expect. So seeing kids play with it to me is really exciting they have to invent their own way of playing with it. There is no prescribed normal way of doing it. When I was a child in Eastern Europe in the 80s and 90s, a lot of the playgrounds were being taken apart and sold for scrap because the economy was collapsing. So you would have these moments where you would arrive at a playground and someone stole the flat bit of the slide and sold it. And so you had to invent a new way of playing with that space. You couldn't slide down the slide, you had to shimmy up it or climb up it. And at the same time, people would find these ways of fixing spaces that would actually change them into something totally different. The title Yolki Palki, it's a little bit hard to pronounce maybe in English, but in Russian it's like a soft curse word. So it's a phrase that would be similar to "oh fudge" in English. The first letter is the same as a curse word in Russian. And it's something that you would say to express maybe frustration or alarm if you are around children and you don't want to offend anybody. So I was thinking about, taking your child to a playground where something is gone or altered in a way that it can't be used in the normal way, and what you might say upon arriving there. That was the phrase.
I'm Shauna Davis, and I'm a choreographer, filmmaker, and dancer based in LA. So the seed of the idea for Black Eco came summer of 2020. It was a very tumultuous time in the country and in LA, and I personally was feeling very unmotivated. I felt like I needed to find a way to escape or transcend the reality that we were living in during that time and that we've always actually been living in. I discovered, for one of the first times, Afrofuturism, which is the merging of art and sci-fi and the African diaspora. And through that discovery of reading books and listening to music, I felt like I wanted to contribute that in the form of dance, in the form of music, and develop these images that I want to see. So that's where Black Eco came from. So it starts out with this constellation woman, and then we dive into 4 different worlds that exist within her, and then finally we land on her in this different context. And each world has a distinct color, sound, background, and feel to it. There's the surveillance world, there is Glitter Boy, there is the Flowerhead world, and Frame world. And it's kind of up to the viewer to see or to feel what this cycle is. I definitely see myself in many of the worlds, and I wish to see more of myself in the worlds. I am super excited to have my work shown in the city of West Hollywood, particularly because I'm excited to be among so many great artists from different backgrounds who share a little bit of what their communities are like and represent them. I also, specifically for Black folks, I'm super excited for us to have an alternate version of how we see ourselves. And that extends to all people. I think if you watch my film, hopefully you're inspired to design your life in a different way, or to think about other possibilities of being and living and embodying yourself. And I think it's really beautiful that the city of West Hollywood celebrates that.
Hello, my name is Michael McMillan. I am the person who designed and built Backlot with a lot of help from other people, I might add. A lot of people behind this piece, the Foundry, other people, certainly my wife, Lauren. We worked together on the garage interior. Since it has a total public exposure, it has to be bulletproof. So, because of the detail I needed in the piece, I couldn't cast it in bronze. It'd be too much of an attractive element for thievery. So I elected to go with cast metal that had no street value, which is generally iron and steel. It was deliberately made to represent the analog film world. So I've always had a love of the craft. I like communal projects where we all work together towards a common goal. And my dad had been a scenic artist, and so I grew up visiting him at the studios and seeing what looked like one thing in person and something else on television. So I've always been fascinated by the fantasy aspect of filmmaking and how you can tell a story in a million different ways. So you're looking back in time into this historical garage, which becomes a repository for these things. There's the writer's desk in the foreground, and the crumpled scripts, and the cigarettes, and the typewriter. The very workbench that I built all these, the Foundry props patterns on, I ended up at the end putting it into the garage as the prop maker's bench, which it is. So everything there has had a double, triple, quadruple life. This really is a testament to the city of West Hollywood and their enthusiastic support for visual arts out among the people of West Hollywood.